Now that is one nice clean cut. xTOOL reached out to me and asked if I wanted to review their D1. I said, sure, why not? No using a knife? Well, where's the fun in that? Well, just pry it up a little bit and pull the tape and use a knife once it's a little bit open. Presentation looks good here. First we have the documentation packet. We'll go ahead and open that a little bit later. And next we have some Standoffs Risers. You get a set of 2. This will allow you to raise it up and like you need some thicker materials or maybe using a rotary. And everything is in layers, nicely packed. Oh, alright, so we have some aluminum extrusions. We got 3 of them. Next we have a little Ziploc pouch here that has some tools, parts, and accessories. Yep, and a little SD card is actually in this one too. Some zip ties, some sample material. Well, and the final layer has everything. You have another aluminum extrusion. Then you have your gantry, your X gantry right here. Next we have the 10-watt laser head. This is a true 10 watts. Then we have your USB cord, and underneath there is the safety goggles. Then we have the power cord and AC adapter. And this kit also included the rotary. This is real nice to have. It's the rotary engraving module, and then we also have the rotary wire harness right next to it. And then hidden in one of these extrusions is, I don't know the naming, why they name it this, but it is, get ready for it, the Optical Shaft. I don't know, I don't get it, but that's the name of it. You could be the judge of that one. And then also in one of these extrusions is the 3-axis control board with Wi-Fi. That's pretty nice. There's the Wi-Fi antenna underneath. Next we have the wire harness. I believe this is, you may want to call it the main wire harness. We do have a couple stragglers, and it looks to be color coded for easy plugging. As we look at the documentation packet, you get some fun stickers, and you get a pretty extensive user manual with installation and setup guides. Also, it has power levels for what you're cutting and engraving, and so forth. Now I've laid out all the extrusions according to the manual, and I had to say, of all the laser engravers I have assembled, this one seems to be more of a pleasure to put together. All these extrusions just line up nicely. It's hard to tell you on camera here how nice and beefy these extrusions are. Now they only take basically 3 screws per corner to fasten, and I'm not going to tighten these all the way down because as we put these together, I will tighten them towards the end. You can see here how nice and flush those screws are when they're in there. They're all concaved down, and it's just as simple to put together. You know, it seems like a lot of work. It's more or less just picking it up, moving it around, then putting the screws in, and then tightening them down as we go around and around and around. Now I'm just making sure all of them are nice and tight. Next, I'm just installing these longer screws. This is for the belt tensioner system. I'll go into further detail about that a little bit later. The gantry just consists of 4 screws to secure it in place, and then we'll be putting in another belt tensioner screw on the top. Pretty simple. And then we're going to flip the whole machine over. And what is this thing called again? The Optical Shaft. Okay, so you're going to screw the coupler back on, and then you're going to insert to one end where the pulley is into the bearing, and then you're going to tighten down the coupler that fastens the optical shaft to the stepper motor. Just make sure you tighten those 2 grub screws down, and then you're good to go. And one more little torque just to make sure it's in there. Next, we're going to go ahead and start with the wiring. Again, everything's color coded, minus this one plug here. It's a little bit more white than the other. It's pretty tight fit. Tried to get the camera angle in there as best as I could, but yeah, not that easy. Got the red and the white end with the grayish beige, and then you're going to go ahead and grab the other single wire harness and plug it into the stepper motor. Now we're going to plug the other end of this wiring harness slash loom and plug it into your X gantry. Pretty easy. And we're going to flip it over and we're going to just zip tie everything in place. Snip, snip, snip. There's 3 holes for that side and there's going to be 2 on this side. You want to make sure that the wires are tucked underneath. Now we're going to go ahead and plug in our white end here into another beige connector. It's a little bit harder to get that one in, and then you're going to go ahead and tuck the wire harness behind. You slide in your laser head and tighten it down with a little thumb screw to hold it in place. Some more cable management, snip snip. The xTOOL D1 has a really unique and simple belt tensioner system. Basically, you're going to just loosen or tighten that screw that was just on to move the belt back and forth to tighten it or loosen it, and this other screw just to secure it in place. Here's a better angle of it. You'll see that the screw on the left is bouncing around a little bit as I am screwing this other flush mount screw in place, and I'm just tightening the belt, checking it every so often to make sure that it is nice and taut, not over tightened. And then once I got to the correct position, I'm going to go ahead and then tighten the screw on the left-hand side. Your flush mount is your bringing the belt in and out, and the one that's just over it will tighten it and lock it in place. The belt for the gantry seemed to be fine, but you go ahead and adjust it the same exact way. Next, we're going to be installing the SD card. This is a micro SD card, and some laser engravers don't have one, but this one does. So just make sure that you insert it the correct way, push it in to lock it in. I'm going to insert a sheet of MDF underneath here because, yes, I am going to create what's called a Spoilboard. It is great to have, not only for orientation, but just in case something burns through and doesn't go to the work surface. Adjusting couldn't be any easier for the head. Just move down that lever, and you see how it just rocks back and forth. And then on the left, you have this thumb screw. Loosen the thumb screw, let it drop down, tighten it back up, and we're going to just move that little lever back up into place. Couldn't be any easier. This laser also has a laser guide for where the tool is located, and it's offset, so you don't have to worry about that. Next, we're going to go ahead and download some software. We're going to head over to the xTOOL website, and we're going to scroll down a little bit, and we're going to download the Laser Box Basic software. Of course, this site has more than just that, but right now we're just focused on the LaserBox Basic software. You have a version for Windows Plus, 7 Plus, and as well as for Mac OS. Now we're going to check for updates. You'll want to make sure that you can find the laser, click on Next, and we're going to update now. The reason why we're doing this is because you always want to have the latest and greatest firmware, but we also need this on here to operate Lightburn if we so choose. And it does take a few minutes, but magic of film editing, we will be done just momentarily. I would say it took about 3 minutes for it to update. Not too bad at all. Now that the firmware is updated on the D1, we're going to head back over to the website and look for the Lightburn configuration file. This will make it super easy to configure Lightburn to use with the D1. Then once we find a download link, we're going to download it and we're going to head on over to Lightburn. Once we're in Lightburn, we're going to click on Devices, search for your file, click on it, and you'll see xTOOL that shows up. Click OK. Well, after you highlight it, choose OK. It's that easy, believe it or not. Just go ahead and pick it down below in the lower right hand corner, and as long as the machine's powered on and connected via USB, you should be able to connect. Now, Lightburn is a paid-for app, and I believe it's like $60 for the license. You can use this, or you use the laser box basics. Now, I want to go ahead and make that Spoilboard, well, wasteboard, whichever you want to call it. It's made out of MDF. And if we head over to Lightburn, you could easily now make a power grid. It is called the Material Test Generator tool. Pretty easily configured. Now, I designed some little mounts so you could fasten the D1 against the Spoilboard. It's on things.com. Link in the description below. It's my first ever design. Kind of proud of it. So please be nice when you rate me on things. Now I did braid the wife's filament. This is actually hers. It's the Polymaker Silk Purple. I think it looks rather nice. And they kind of stand out a little bit. Well, we're going to need to take out these little rubber feet because I designed the part without using these. I don't want to get them kind of lodged in there anyway, so we're going to remove all of them from all four corners. And we're going to try to line these up where you could get the screws in on either side. So you're going to just place it there and turn it a little bit. We can always adjust these later. But once we have all four of these down, we're going to try to center this the best we can. Again, it doesn't have to be totally perfect because we just want to get this mounted. And I'm going to use these Power Pro 6x1.5 screws, and it comes with its own bit, so that's rather nice. Oh, this was actually spares from another project of mine, and that project actually was completed. And we're going to just go ahead and drill them down in all four corners. And once we do that, I'm going to just take this carpenter's pencil. What? Tripods using a carpenter's pencil? That's the only one I could find in the garage. And we're going to just mark it so when we remove the D1, it's kind of everything is in place. If anything shifts, because we're doing this so we could drill the other holes or screw down the other screws and holes. However you want to do it. See, that one shifted. See, I think ahead sometimes. And now we're going to just go ahead and fasten the other ones down. And the bit's a little stubborn sometimes, but not that big of a deal. And this way, once we have them all secure, we will go ahead and now, as soon as I get that screw gun off, now we could go ahead and place this on. Easy peasy. One leg didn't want to get in, but nevertheless, hey, look at that. Nice and secure. Perfect. And where am I going to get this grid? Well, Etsy, of course. Yeah, you thought I was going to make it? No way. So I went to Etsy, I found this great file, and I'll put a link in the description below. So if you choose, you can buy it and download it yourself. Now we did that test grid pattern, and I went with a burn setting that I like. It's not configured on here because you should sample your own materials first. Just because the setting I have on here may not reflect the setting that you will use yourself. And with that, we have disclaimer time. Yes, this video is for entertainment purposes only. You are following these instructions at your own risk. Always wear approved eye protection. People and animals not wearing protection should stay away. And last but not least, I am not responsible if you do not become a pro after watching this video. Please be sure to wear your safety glasses. With that being said, now we're going to go ahead and engrave our Spoilboard. What's good about a Spoilboard is that you can not only, if something passes through, it'll burn this surface versus burning the surface like your table or something. And plus, it'll help you align your parts. Definitely lots of benefits to having a Spoilboard/wasteboard. Just doing some testing here on more MDF, a little project that I'm working on a little bit later. This is a side-by-side patent of a four-wheeler. Pretty cool looking. Next, I'm trying the laser box basic on this cutting board, just seeing how well that software works over Lightburn. So far, not too bad. Now I know that your Spoilboard is kind of a sacrifice, but you know what? It's always good to have one of these honeycomb laser beds. This way, if something is engraving, it's passing through, this will make it a lot nicer of a finished product. Here I'm doing a pass-through of the 3mm basswood that they provided. I think I'm doing like 100% power at 40 millimeters per second, and seems to be cutting pretty good. Here's the dog tag sample that they gave me. I'm doing this, I believe, at like 100% power at 5 millimeters per second. Now you could leave the rotary plugged in all you want. It's just make sure it's out of the way. It's easy to plug in, and it's one wire here, plug in, and the other wire there. So it has its own access, so you don't have to unplug one to use it. And I'm going to just use these standoffs to raise it up a little. And actually, I mean a lot. I used both sets to use this this tumbler here. What I like to do is put a piece of tape around it and do a like 20% power and etch the tape to make sure it looks right before I commit to the project. Yes, I have a problem with commitment. Don't tell the wife too much about that stuff, but yeah, it looks really good here. And in the software, that's where you just choose that you want to use the rotation. And I would suggest that you use the Laser Box Basic for that. It is just super easy, but this took a very long time to engrave because it's 100% power at 5 millimeters per second. Ouch. Yeah, it took about 3 hours. And with engraving glass, it needs a little assistance. And I use tempera paint. It's washable. And you just brush it on, let it dry, and this is done at about 3,000 millimeters per minute at 70% power. Let's see how nice it looks after it's done. Okay, let's take a look at some of the stuff I engraved. This is a bamboo cutting board, and you can see that has a little bit of inconsistencies with the burn because of the grain. However, I would like to talk to you about how this was engraved. It took 176 minutes because it created a whole bunch of layers. First it did the border, then it did the beef, the pork, the poultry, and then the fish. And then it went and said, oh, I'm going to do some of the wording here, randomly, here, here, and here. And then I will do some lines here, and then here. This should have taken maybe about 45 minutes to do. I think it came out rather nice. It engraved it pretty deep, and it's very legible. But yeah, software needs some work, that's for sure. Should have had created all those layers. I did a burn through test, and this is 3 millimeter sample that they provided, and boy is this clean. But I think it's also to do with the honeycomb build mat or thing that I have. Look at that, it's just like practically perfect with no air assist. Nice clean cut. 3 millimeters. Yeah, I could have gone probably even higher. And here's the stainless steel tag. Did that very well too. Again, stainless steel is pretty darn nice to laser etch on. No problems with that. Now, this took some time. This took about 3 hours because it was like 5 millimeters a second, and yeah, about 3 hours. But look at this. I mean, no assistance with like spray painting it first. It literally just stunning. I mean, I can't feel that it like etched into it, but it's not coming off. Next, I have this picture frame, and I used tempera paint, and with diode lasers, you definitely need to use some type of assistance with it. And it's one of my daughter's favorite cars, the Shelby Mustang. And man, this has to be the best etching I've done on glass yet. Look at that detail. And it's not coming off. It is on there. Wow, absolutely amazing quality. Took about an hour and 20 minutes for this to etch. Couldn't be more pleased. Now I go through about a week and a half of testing when it comes to these lasers, because starting point seems to be a little bit different for all, but xTOOL gives you a little bit of a cheat sheet for materials to work with, but I suggest that you have some sacrifice materials on hand for whatever you're working with, just to test it out first. But I know what you're really here for. What food is Tripod going to engrave this time? Well, you know, has no preservatives, and I think it's time for Taco Tuesday. Now on Taco Tuesday, add a little pizzazz to it. Yummy. Now, let's get on to my thoughts about this xTOOL D1. I have to say the biggest drawback is Laser Box Basic. It needs some improvement, to say the least. When I did this cutting board, it should have been one layer, not 6 or 7. And it should have been done maybe in about 40 minutes tops, I would think, for this type of detail. And it took 176 minutes. I don't know why it needed to add those layers and bounce around everywhere, but it was definitely not needed. I mean, this is definitely one of the biggest drawbacks of this system is the basic software. Now, if you're running with Lightburn, you won't have any of those issues. It will just work a lot better. So, and plus, Lightburn is definitely a better software suite for the laser engravers. Next, I'd like to see the antenna maybe positioned somewhere on the side, so that way you can slide material all the way through. I mean, they hid the control board. Why couldn't they do the same with the antenna? Just mount it on the side. And then the cable hanging out the side. Now, it never worked itself into the workspace and having it possibly get cut by the laser, but I think it should be addressed. I mean, those 3 things, otherwise, wow, I've been nothing but impressed from the overall build quality and how everything was thought through. The performance of the machine was great. Had no issues with anything but the software, basically. And it just worked. Now, I will put links below where you can purchase it. xTOOL always has some type of good deals going on and are releasing some new products. And I really appreciate you tuning in to Tripod's Garage. Please have a wonderful day, evening, or weekend, or whenever you decide to watch this video. Thanks again for tuning in to Tripod's Garage. Thank you.